guys, so today I am going to be talking about fueling for your sport. I will do another video about training for your sport and sport specific techniques, but today is about nutrition, my specialty and my favorite part because I love food. So to start, there's a lot of disclaimers here, so I'm going to start with the very first, most important one. Everybody is different, every body is different, and every athlete, every sport, all that requires different macronutrients, different training styles, different nutrient timing and meal plans. So what I'm going to tell you today is a very general recommendation for what you should be doing pre, intra, and post workout. Like I said, depending on your goals, depending if you have your personal nutritionist or dietitian, they will work with you specifically depending on your height, your age, your weight, the sport that you do, how many times you work out. All that gets factored in of how they would make a meal plan that caters to your lifestyle. So with all that said, this is going to be a very basic kind of way that you can kind of formulate nutrient timing on your own schedule, especially if you don't have the resources or the money or the time to have dietitians or personal trainers or anything like that. So that's my little disclaimer on that note. All right, so to get started, one thing I really want to drill into your heads is carbohydrates are essential, they're important, and you need them for energy. That is their primary function, is to give energy to the body. Obviously there's good carbs and there's bad carbs, and if you want to check more into that, you could check out my other video on the truth about sugar and the truth about carbs. I can leave that link in the description box below, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about fueling your body right so you have good performance, and depending on your goals, which might mainly be performance if you're watching this video, but it could also be fat loss depending if you are an athlete in the sport of wrestling or jiu-jitsu like myself, where weight is a huge factor on our competitive side because we need to meet a certain weight, so there is a lot of weight cutting and cutting calories and stuff like that in order to meet our goal. But as far as fueling for your sport and during your training sessions, this is really important, carbohydrates. So what I'm going to talk about is 3 different scenarios of when and how much you will eat. So let's start the furthest away from your training session. So if you have a training session scheduled, if you are 2 to 3 hours out of your training session, like before it's about to start, that's enough time for your body to digest the food before you start getting into your intense training. So that being said, you want to compose your meal to be a very balanced meal. You want a protein, you want carbs, and this can be a nice substantial size because you have those 2 to 3 hours in normal digestion period to digest and break that down. So by that time, you have the right amount of food and fuel to fuel that energy for your training, but it's not so much in such a short amount of time that you're going to get sick from it, if that makes any sense. So you really want to try to stick to a high protein, high carb, and low fat kind of meal. Same applies if you're 1 to 2 hours out. So you got 2 to 3 hours, it's a little bit bigger. 1 to 2 is the same concept of high carb, high protein, lower fat, and the portion might just be a little bit smaller because you're a little bit closer to your training session, and we don't want to have any GI issues or feeling sick or nauseous during our training session, so that will obviously inhibit our performance and also we'll just feel sick, so we don't want that. So just think about those concepts: high protein, high carb, with a little bit of a smaller portion. Now, just so you guys know, I did want to just do like a little quick tips on how to kind of structure those meals, but I will give example little meals in the description box below for both the longer meals and like the 1 to 2 hours. So it's pretty much going to be the same thing, but the portion size might be different. So check out the description box below for like a little bit more detailed info on that. That's pretty much what you want to stick with. And the reason why we want to stick with low fat is because fat is a huge component in keeping us fuller longer, but it also takes a long time to digest. So if you have a very high fat content meal, it may take longer than 2 to 3 hours to digest, and it may make you feel sluggish and inhibit your performance. So you really want to try to stick to, one, always healthier fats when you do have fats, but if you're thinking of a meal planning kind of idea before an actual training session, just stick to the lower content fat, so it's not going to feel sluggish and heavy in your system. Fiber may also play into that. So fiber and fat are huge components in keeping you full and feeding that satiety that we all want when we're hungry to kind of fulfill that, so we feel satiated. And that's what fiber and fat does. So sometimes though, if you're about to have a very intense training session, especially involving like explosive movements and plyo and stuff like that, that can really upset your stomach because it takes way longer to digest, because the goal of that stuff is to stay in your stomach for a long period of time, to stay in your digestive tract so you're full. And that's not necessarily the purpose when you're about to go train, because you need that food to be digested already. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense as far as why it's lower fat and possibly lower fiber, but definitely high protein, high carb. Now that said, you just got back from work, your schedule's kind of messed up because you hit traffic, stuff like that, and now you only got 30 minutes or less to get to your training session, and you didn't have time to eat anything like a big meal. Unfortunately, I do not recommend trying to stuff a big meal down your throat. Although I know it may be tempting, it's not going to be the best as far as your performance and how you feel. So with that being said, if you're 30 minutes or less before you're about to start a training session, then you really want to stick to a fast absorbing carbohydrate. And in that sense, that will be more of the fruit juices, gummy bear type things, any pretty much simple carb that digests really fast, doesn't have fiber, doesn't have fat. And Gatorade is a great example. Gatorade, Powerade, because they have the simple carbs and they have electrolytes, so they'll help replenish you, but it will give you that instant energy because you don't have anything slowing it down. So if you are running short on time, really like a Gatorade is the ideal situation. And that is all pre-workout. So I get questions like this all the time, so it really is important to know nutrient timing and when exactly you're going to be eating so you can plan accordingly around your training schedules. This is definitely important too if you do 2 days or you work out multiple times a day. You really have to figure out what works well with your schedule and your digestive tract. And that may be more than just me talking to you in a quick little video. You may need a personal dietitian to really train you on that on a weekly basis to see what exactly is the best thing for you. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's what we're here for. So that's that as far as pre-workout. Now, when you're in blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. When you're into a workout, it really depends on the length of workout if you need to refuel using carbs. So if you're just like a typical workout, like an hour or less, like whether it's the gym lifting or if you're even doing like a HIIT session or even just running a couple miles, you don't need to constantly replenish with carbohydrates to replete your glycogen stores. It's really when you are about 1.5 or more training session, hours-wise. So for instance, for jiu-jitsu, when we do a lot of our competition training and we're doing like 2-3 hours straight, that would be the ideal time to have like a Gatorade, a Powerade, or some fruit juice that you would want to sip after like an hour and a half to give you that instant bit of energy to continue on with your training and to kind of fuel the rest of your performance rather than just kind of like a gas running on empty. Kind of like you're running the tank all the way down to low and have nothing to refuel it immediately, and so like you're not gonna finish as strong as you started, pretty much. Think of it that way. So if you, like I said, if your training sessions are going to be 1.5 hours straight through or more, you really want to have that simple carb to get into your body to help you push through to the end of the workout. So that'll be the intra-workout. And then post-workout is the same concept as far as high protein, high carbs, low fat, and this is immediately after you work out. When you work out, your body and your insulin receptor cells are very active and open, ready to take in that glucose to feed the energy to the cells. So that's why right after working out, it is wise to take some simple carbs, like a Gatorade or something like that. But protein is ideal because protein is what really helps to support the muscle development if you're lifting, or even if you're doing other like calisthenics or body weight training. All that stuff is still weight training even if you're not lifting weights. So just anything like that, protein really helps to sustain that muscular development and also, more importantly, aid in recovery. And that's really where the protein shines. So it's really important to make sure you get that protein in right after you work out, like 30 minutes to an hour max. And then after you do a little bit of carbs, a little bit of protein, then you can think about having like a regular meal, you know, 2 to 3 hours after that, like you would, you know, say if it's dinner time at that point, then you would just have like dinner. But you definitely, like, for instance, would have like a quick little protein shake. I like to just use either a soy protein or a pea protein powder, since I don't use whey or casein or anything. Whey would be the best, by the way. Casein's a little slower digesting, and in the case of working out and getting that protein and carbs to your muscles, you want that ASAP. So whey would be the best if you're okay with that. For those who have GI issues or don't tolerate whey or dairy, soy or pea proteins, there's a ton of vegan options out there that I like to use, and you can use that as well. And just kind of, I like to use it with water. You can use it with milk. Milk will provide that little bit of carbohydrate. So those are really my biggest tips. You obviously always to just continually enhance your performance. Drink as much water as you can daily, just because it's always going to help flush out those toxins, help your body and your functions really form to their best of the performance, as opposed to just drowning it with caffeine or coffee. If it's not a protein shake, I prefer just drinking that water, unless, like I said, you're doing that Gatorade intra-workout or like a quick thing right before a workout. But honestly, it's like water is going to be your best hydration tool. I hope that helped you guys out as far as a little bit more clear understanding of what you should be doing before, in the middle of, and after you're working out, depending on what that is. Like I said, it does vary depending on your sport and depending on a million other factors. But one thing that goes true across the board that I did want to mention before I say goodbye is training versus like getting ready for a competition, or like putting your training to work in a competition or a game type setting. Never, 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 never experiment with new foods the day of, or I would even say the week of. Definitely not the day of or the day before. But I would even go as safe to say like the week of. You never want to experiment with a new food that your body's not used to, because you never know how you're going to react to it. And the last thing you need, especially in a sport such as jiu-jitsu that I do, that your competition is very heavily based on if you even make weight. So if you have a food that you don't even know that you tolerate well, or you never eat it enough to even know, you never know the high sodium content, if that makes you retain more fluid, that can be 1 or 2 extra pounds that now you have to try and sweat out last minute because it bumped your weight up. Or something like a GI issue. You don't know that you couldn't really tolerate kale, and you had a kale salad because you were doing lower carb, but you had the kale and messed you up, and now you have diarrhea for 3 days, and it's the week of. You're going to be dehydrated, you're going to be a little less energy, a little weaker, that kind of stuff. So you really got to pay attention to what kind of food you're doing. But that said, you can experiment with those foods. It just needs to be way before you're about to put it to test in a competition or anything like that. So if you're just like in a normal training season, then you can experiment with that. Because if you get sick, you get sick. You know how your body's going to respond. But you just don't want to do it right before a competition, right before a fight, anything like that. So that is my other tip, because it's very, very crucial. I learned from my experience, and also just because of research and things like that. Mainly my experience is the #1 reason why I just say that. But yeah, so that's my little tips. I hope this helped you guys. Like I said, I will be doing training for your sports series, so that'll be more like exercises for jiu-jitsu specifically, or any kind of plyometric based sport. So sorry about you long distance runners. I'll maybe do one later in the future, but right now my focus is on jiu-jitsu, so that's pretty much what the video will be about. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, share it with a friend, because I get a million questions, and I'm sure the people want to know the answers to what to eat before they work out, because I get it all the time. So share it with your friend. I know they want to know it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, and peace out.